webinar. Welcome everyone. This is a joined webinar with RJOS, Gladden Society, and ASSH. We're doing a summer series on advocacy, something that the Academy is heavily influenced with, but I feel like a lot of us don't exactly know what we do with advocacy. So this is Advocacy 101, an inside look into the interplay of politics and policy in orthopedics. And I am so pleased that we have Dr. Douglas Lundy here, who is a mentor of mine in advocacy, who's going to give a great overview on exactly what it is that advocacy in orthopedics and how it intertwines together. This is just an overview. At the end, we're going to open it up for questions, which you can do through the chat. But first, I want to introduce Dr. Doug Lundy, who, if you have not heard this name, you definitely will if you go to Academy or NOLC or anything that has to do with advocacy in orthopedics. He's held numerous leadership positions with the American Board of Orthopedic Surgery, the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, the OTA, AAOS. I could go on and on. He is currently the chair of the Department of Orthopedic Surgery at St. Luke's University and is the chair of the AAOS Advocacy Council. So thank you, Dr. Lundy, for joining us today and helping us to break down what advocacy is in orthopedics.
Thank you, Dr. Bilbrew. Just to call you out, I had the pleasure and honor of working with you for many years at Resurgence when I was still down in Atlanta with your pretty Atlanta skyline behind you there. Mm-hmm. And we had a great time, and you and I spent a lot of time up on Capitol Hill and in members of Congress office spreading the cause. So thank you, ma'am.
Absolutely. So, I think the first question, let's get basic with this, because that's the best way, is just with the building blocks of what is advocacy. I think it's a word that's just kind of thrown around that we hear all the time. But Dr. Lundy, what is advocacy in relation to orthopedics to you?
You bring up a great point with that. So if you think about just the overall layout of the AAOS, right, there are 4 councils. There's membership, research, and quality. Membership is Liz Matskin, research and quality is David Jesvivar, education, which is Andy Schmidt, and then advocacy, which is me. And what does that mean? How does that work? And we use that word somewhat loosely. I'm going to advocate for my patients. And what exactly does all that mean? Well, specifically within the context of what we're talking about, and specifically within the AAOS, ASSH, the Gladden Society, and RJOS, it's about political advocacy, which at the end of the game is affecting public policy to the betterment of our patients and our profession. So the Council on Advocacy works with the Office of Government Relations, which is broken into 3 parts. And the 3 parts are the legislative part, which everybody thinks about, right? If you think about, I'm going to the National Orthopedic Leadership Conference, and with Dr. Bilbrew and what does she and I do, we go to members of Congress office and we advocate for things. But there's 2 very important parts of this. One is the regulatory side, which I have become more and more involved with, which is extremely instrumental. And we can get into that more and why that's so important. And then the last part is the PAC, which everybody knows about, that is chaired by John Gill, but the PAC is under the Council on Advocacy and helps us get access to these important and influential people so that we can affect laws and rules that helps us practice and take care of people.
And that's a great, transition, because the next side that I have is, what is the importance of advocacy in the practice of within the practice of orthopedics? Because again, it's just a word that we hear. I love how you broke it down into the different sectors so that we can understand. I think, in the private practice world, we always say we advocate for our patients, but then we have this, huge organization that really is doing the grassroots movement on actually making motion behind saying, oh, I'm just advocating for my patient. So I have this slide here on why the Orthopac is important, why we need to be involved in advocacy, and why it's something that we shouldn't just kind of gloss over, right? So it affects how we get paid, whether that's in private practice, the employed model, the academic model, the government model, what we can actually do on a daily basis, and who we can treat, our insurance companies, what we can own, whether you're working as a small business, how we're insured. So in your own words, what is at stake, and why is the Orthopac so essential to us as orthopedic surgeons?
Yeah, so the PAC gets us access. And if right now, if you're, kind of reviling on that, going, wait a minute, we have to pay to get access to our elected leaders. What is that all about? You're in very good company, because the woman that I sleep with in my bed for the last 27 years, she hates it as well. So I get it. If you're like, that's gross, how could you ever do that? I allowed to live with a lady that thinks the same thing of me. So that's okay. You're a good company, and she would go with you on this. However, in the real world, if you think it's a different way to look at this, what we do with the PAC is we use our money to help our friends, people who think like we do, get elected and stay elected in Congress. It's the important part of it. So that's the important thing. And to your point, it really affects almost everything that we do. And think about it in the terms of how we practice, not just how we get paid, but what we're able to do and who we're able to take care of. And most importantly, how we're able to help the people that we do take care of.
Exactly. And I think, the most important thing that you kind of pointed out is the reason why we enjoy orthopedics so much, not just, the surgery we do with the patients that we treat, but it's how we're able to practice in comparison to other fields of medicine, which have really started to get strangulated. And it's because they don't have such an important PAC. They don't have as much money going behind it that's really pushing forward those things that are essential to them practicing in their own field. And so, again, I hate when people throw out words, and let's break it down for us. What does the Orthopac do, like as the advocacy chair? And I know that we can do a whole webinar on what the Orthopac does, but this, for me, my goal within RJOS and GLAD and ASSH is to really represent, the private practice physician who maybe isn't as involved. Academic medicine, I feel like we get exposed to it a lot more when you're in residency. You hear it, given to the PAC. But, what does the Orthopac do for the average everyday orthopedic surgeon?
So the Orthopac enables our legislative folks. So Catherine Hayes is in charge of the legislative side of the Office of Government Relations, and Shirasi Deb, she is in charge of the regulatory side. But Shirasi and Catherine have limited access to the members of Congress and to we're obviously not paying money to get in front of the regulatory arms, but the effect that we're able to get in front of those folks at HHS and such is by the fact that we are enabling our folks to get reelected. And so Brittany Starr, who runs the PAC, along with John Gill, the Orthopac is the biggest PAC in orthopedic surgery, and you'll see in one of the upcoming slides, we're one of the biggest PACs in the whole game with this. Is that when we enable our friends, people, members of Congress, senators who think like we do, to be reelected, it then gains us access to those folks in those important decision-making times to enable the laws to be passed.
Exactly. I think access is key. I remember going to an advocacy event with a congressman, and he said, at the end of the day, if we're not on the table, if we're not at the table, he says, we're going to eat your dinner and your lunch too. And that always stuck with me, the honesty of it. Number one, we got that honest response because we have this Orthopac where he can sit down and have these candid conversations about things that affect our patients on an everyday basis. And again, part of the reason we get to enjoy the field of orthopedics so much is that we have taken control of it through the Orthopac. What Dr. Lundy was mentioning, I really enjoyed looking at this slide because if you look at the American Association of Orthopedic Surgeons in blue for the 2020 election cycle, and then you just go up one, it's Walmart. that is impressive. The fact that that's how powerful we are. That's why, again, we enjoy this field. Is there anything you want to comment on with this slide, Dr. Lundy?
No, ma'am. As you can see, we are one of the big players. It's funny, we're bigger than the AMA, bigger than the ACS, American College of Surgeons. And so the members of Congress, the people inside the Beltway know who we are. This little specialty of orthopedic surgery has a big impact. We're second to ASA, the American Society of Anesthesia. But if you think about ASA is a one-issue pack, right? Let's suppress the scope of practice of anesthetists. That's all. That's not all we're looking at. That's their main thing. We have a multiplicity of issues that we deal with, and for a tiny little specialty like ours, in terms of numbers, we have a significant impact inside the Beltway.
All right, and that, that's a really good point you made with the anesthesiologist being like focusing on one thing. I don't want anyone out there to think that we're just pumping money in just to help us get paid better as orthopedic surgeons. That's a small portion of what we're advocating on. This is musculoskeletal research. This is some of it was like student loan repayment for students was one of the big issues. Surprise billing, with the surprise changes in surprise billing that really came through the efforts of the academy and our advocacy council. But we're going to get into all of that, as well as the need to donate for us to continue having such a high standing.
Right.
So this is a question I get asked all the time. Dr. Lundy, you've probably had this too, where, someone finds out that we have supported a certain candidate and they just come down on me really hard. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's, we're turning into this weird purple state. And the question is the Orthopac Democratic or Republican?
Yeah, what a great point that is. So let's just, to your point, let's break this down. Let's call out the obvious and call it out. If you think about the common face, the common perception of orthopedic surgery, it's this, right? Middle-aged white male, which you would then automatically assume is Republican or highly conservative. And as Lattisha knows well, because we're good friends and we've been friends forever, nobody knows my political leanings, even my wife, so don't assume anything about me. However, it's easy to assume that our PAC lies heavily to the right and our political advocacy lies heavily to the right. There may be significant, not maybe, there are significant issues with diversity in orthopedic surgery, as well as many places in the country. But one thing that we don't have a problem with diversity with is political ideation. And I can tell you that loud and clear after January 6th. On January 6th, I was chair of the council, and we got blown up from both sides, far left and the far right, with some pretty loud dogmatic stuff. So when you look at this, and the PAC used to lean heavily to the right, but now the PAC is very, very, very much, pretty much down the middle. We're proud to say that there are issues that the Democrats are far better on than the Republicans. And there are issues that the Republicans are better on than Democrats. So we play on both sides of the aisle. We're not playing politics, we're playing policy. We're working on the specific issues that we have. My personal politics never come into play. And there are certain things I believe strongly on that nobody will ever know about, because it's my job as council chair. It's my job to advocate for our profession, not for what Doug Lundy wants.
Absolutely. I'm good. That's a hashtag there, Dr. Lundy. It's not politics, it's policy. I'm going to have to bring that up to the Advocacy Council to try and get some young members. Hashtag not politics, policy. So that is a great transition into this next slide, which is, the Orthopac by the numbers. So these are the candidates supported in the 2020 election cycle. And, as you can see, for the House members, it's off by less than $3,000, as far as what we've put in. I'm sure there's going to be someone that says, take a look at the Senate members supported. But again, it's not something that is 99% going to one side. And even with the 2022 election cycle, 53% Republican, 47% Democrat. It is not as skewed as what people may think. And again, we are going to be open for questions. So at the end, if you have any questions about this, feel free to ask. Even better, if you're even further interested, join the Advocacy Council and get involved, whether that's RJOS, ASSH, Gladden. I'm just plugging ahead early here. So, how do we determine which candidate we're going to support? If somebody, has a friend that's going to be running, or they know someone that's running and they want, us to put some money behind it, Dr. Lundy, how do we determine who we are supporting?
Well, thank you for that, Dr. Bilbrew. So when we got blasted pretty good. We didn't do anything wrong, but we got blasted pretty good, excuse me, after January 6th. And there are folks who were saying, I can't believe y'all would support AOC. I can't believe that y'all would support Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I think we can all agree are about as polar opposite as you can get. I don't know if you can get any further right than Marjorie Taylor Greene. You probably can get a little further right than AOC, but she's pretty far on the left. So I'm sorry, further left than AOC, but she's pretty far out there. What we do is we focus on the folks that are more in the middle. We focus on people that are actually people that can make influential change for us. So when a candidate, for instance, let's look at it from the candidate side. So one of Dr. Bilbrew's friends from medical school was running for Congress. When he decided to run, there he is. When he decided to run, Rich had to submit a absolute questionnaire that we looked at, and we go through the whole thing and we decide where is he on his issues. The second thing, there was another physician who was running that did okay on the questionnaire. He wasn't as great as we'd like him to, but he did okay on it. But we then reach out to the orthopedic surgeons in that state, and we ask them, what do y'all think about this person? And the orthopedic surgeons in that state were pretty negative on this guy. They're not Rich. Everybody likes Rich, which is this picture here with Lattisha. But this other guy, the orthopedic surgeons were not very bullish on him at all. And so we take all of that into account before we move forward. So number one, they've got to be strong on our issues. How much we give to them depends on the different positions that they're in. So for instance, Leader Pelosi is of far more interesting to us because, I mean, she's Speaker of the House. Speaker Pelosi, not leader. Sorry, Speaker Pelosi is far more interest to us than a brand new Congress man or woman that just comes in who doesn't have any of the traction that we can leverage and go from there. Nonetheless, the people that we look at are friendly to orthopedic surgery, friendly to our patients, friendly to our issues. It's not any specific good old boys club that anybody that I knew from college that I want to scratch their back. Dr. Bilbrew, why don't you tell us about Rich and your relationship with him and how this went out?
Right. So Rich and I went to medical school together. I went to Morehouse School of Medicine, and he was a year above me. And he was the class president. And if those that don't know, Morehouse is a historically Black university, and he was a white male. And he was also about 10 years older than the rest of us. The great thing about Rich is that, he's a Marine, he's an ER doctor, a father of 3 boys. And I knew his character, right? He was running as a Republican. You know where I stand. It's in the it's in the presentation. But I knew him, and I was able to sit down with him on several occasions to discuss those orthopedic issues about musculoskeletal care, insurance, reimbursement, etc. I actually, and if you ask him, did not agree with him on a lot of other things. Right. But if I'm approaching him from the perspective as an orthopedic surgeon who was looking to our Orthopac, those were the issues that I talked to him about, and it coincided. Now, like I said, we can sit and have a drink, and Rich and I will debate everything else. But for me, it was my stand as an orthopedic surgeon. And again, I want people to know that when they fill out these questionnaires, we're not just kind of passing it off. We're studying them. We're really reading them. We're questioning, which is why I want people to get involved with advocacy, because you have a voice, right? But you're not going to have a voice if you don't join. You're not going to have a voice if you don't donate. And we're not talking about thousands of dollars. As a resident, it was $5. Like our chairman was like, everyone's not donating something. Well, that $5 then gives you a voice that you can speak with someone on the council and say, hey, you guys are supporting someone, and here are the reasons that I do or I don't like them. And I was able to do that for Rich.
And Lattisha, you took a fair amount of heat during that, if I recall back during the time. I mean, if folks came, some of your friends or some of the folks came after you saying, how can you go for this guy? He's on the other side, but you stuck to your guns and you said, on the issues that I'm talking about, this guy helps us with our profession and with our patients.
Absolutely. I took heed
I was
for
proud
that.
of you. That was great. That was strong. Good for you.
Thank you. That flyer went out all throughout his district of most of Atlanta, and yeah, my friends, people from the Alumni Association, they came down pretty hard on me. They wanted to have a meeting about me. I think it was in the AJC at one point. Very interesting. I was pregnant at the time, and thankfully I'm not a super cryy person, but I was just like, okay, well, let's have a meeting, because hey, that's another chance for me to talk about advocacy, to talk about the Orthopac and the importance of orthopedics, which is really musculoskeletal care. It's more than, again, people think you're just trying to get reimbursed more, and no, this is musculoskeletal care. This is research. This is student loan repayment. This is for my patients. So yeah, it was worth it.
Be honest with you, when we saw that happen, and we were like, y'all be careful. Don't get her in a corner. You're going to get hurt. She can stand up for herself, and she's got the spine to handle that. And I appreciate how you did all that. But you made the perfect point where, we all do that to a degree with this, where we put our personal politics aside and focus on what's best for the profession. Right. We can do whatever we want on the side, you on your personal agenda, do whatever you want. But when it comes to this, I specifically go right down the middle.
Exactly. And I was supporting other people that were on the other side that, agreed with our issues. So people couldn't say much. I'm like, he's not even in my district. I can't even vote for him. So it's not about that. So a great segue here. So, the accomplishments in the field of orthopedics and policy. I mean, there are so many things that we have touched on. I've only been involved over the last, 4 or 5 years, and I've seen things passed. I've seen things that continue to come up. The surprise billing, the COVID relief, getting grants for orthopedic practices, the coding and reimbursement, antitrust laws, research, funding, devices. There's actually this website here that I listed up top. If you really want to see what we've done in the last 12 to 24 months specifically, this is a 3-page PDF, which breaks it down in great detail. So this is a plug for Advocacy Week. Dr. Lundy, do you want to speak on what Advocacy Week is for those that may not know?
Yes, ma'am. So for most of y'all, if you know of National Orthopedic Leadership Conference, the NOLC, which is generally, most of the time it's an invitation only, it costs you money, you've got to fly to DC. Mostly it's Board of Counselors, Board of Specialty Societies, some folks from the different specialty societies and different things, the leadership organizations within AAOS. But it's not open to everybody. And so last year, President of the Academy, Danny Guy, who's also a Georgia person like Dr. Bilbrew and myself, was President of the Academy. He was plagued under the COVID, and so NOLC had been canceled. And he says, I've got to do something. So he started Orthopedic Advocacy Week. Well, this is the second year. And as y'all can see, it's from the 1st of August through the 5th of August, and we've made it better than last year. One thing I got to tell y'all, please hear me loud and clear on this, is that the Academy, if you've noticed a change in the communication from the Academy, the AAOS has heard you loud and clear, and they are not shelling you with emails like they used to do. So you are getting very specific strategic emails, far less common than you used to get. The point is this, is that from the advocacy channel, we only have limited access out to the fellowship. So if y'all don't sign up for Orthopedic Advocacy Week, the 1st through the 5th of August is going to come and go, and you're never going to know it was there. So please, please, please do what she's showing here. Go to the webpage and sign up for Orthopedic Advocacy Week. And then what it is it's for everybody within orthopedic surgery. And we make this so easy, you're going to be stunned by it. We'll walk you through it. The first day is about social media, helping you amplify our issues across there. The second day is growing support through grassroots, where we show you the very, very easy way of communicating with Congress. Literally, all you have to do is type in your name and address and your email. It auto-populates the letters, you hit send, and it shoots them out to your congressional leaders, your 2 senators and your member of Congress. The third day we go on 3rd of August, we're going after rulemaking on the regulatory side, specifically with the Department of Health and Human Services, with Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And then on the 4th, this is cool. This is something we didn't do before that y'all really want. You're not going to be involved in this if you don't sign up. So y'all sign up. This is really important, that what we're going to do is for your specific state. So Lattisha, you're going to get a thing about Georgia and about what the economic impact of orthopedic surgery is in Georgia. The number of patients y'all treat, the amount of revenue you bring into the state, the number of people you give jobs to, and all the great stuff that Dr. Bilbrew and the folks down in Georgia are doing with that. And any state you're in, I'll get it in Pennsylvania, the folks in Alaska will get it in Alaska. And you can use that not only to talk with your local leaders, but heck, take it to your hospital administrators and slap it on their desk and go, let me show you how much we're being underappreciated and the impact that we as orthopedic surgeons have. And then last is to get invested with the Orthopaedic PAC. And the PAC with Brittany and Dr. John Gill have really dialed this up. And there's a lot of incentive for y'all to get involved in the PAC. Number one, oh, thank you very much. You're right on cue. The charity match that she's showing here on the left, where we'll match contributions to a charity of your choice. Here's just some of the charities listed, but they don't have to be these. If you want to do something else, you can do something else. And on the right, it's this winner's choice sweepstakes that a certain, in each of these categories, somebody's going to win. And if you look at the big one, there's a big one on there that's even a trip to Ireland. So there's a whole lot of cool stuff, Cancun, other things like that that you can win for this. This year, we're trying to get up and over $1 million for the PAC. It's a very divisive year. It's an election year. It's very, 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 very important. Whatever your political leaning is, there is room in orthopedics for everybody, and everybody's voice needs to be heard. But within the House of Orthopaedics, we have to advocate for our profession, y'all. If we don't do it, if we divide ourselves up, focusing on other things, we're going to get hurt across the board. It's not just financial that Dr. Bilbrew pointed out. It's not just financial. It's our ability to take care of our patients, which is so integrally important. Sorry, Lattisha, I get a little passionate on that.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Because that is a great segue. So how can members get involved, whether they're a member of GLADDN, RJOS, ASSH member, how can they get involved in advocacy, in the Advocacy Council, Orthopac, et cetera, et cetera?
Thank you on that once again. Remember, once I said before, and we've manned the PAC booth, and I've seen you, and you and I have stood at the PAC booth together. We see many times people come by and just assume a lot of stuff that the PAC does. Oh, y'all are far right. Y'all are just trying to get the old white man reelected and all that. And that is not the case at all. There is room in advocacy for everybody in the AAOS, no matter how far left or how far right you are. The only thing we ask is just listen and assume that the person that's politically different from you, that's what they believe, and that's their best in their heart. That's what they believe is right. Don't condemn them. Just accept with them as colleagues in orthopedic surgery and work together for our issues in orthopedics. One of the best ways to get involved is through Orthopaedic Advocacy Week. It's extremely easy. We'll lead you through it. You will make an impact, and we can go from there. There are so many countless opportunities. Of course, your specialty societies are very, very important, like ASSH. I was in San Francisco last year at the ASSH meeting. They invited me to come out and talk to y'all's advocacy meeting out there. RJOS and Ruth Jackson also have strong advocacy arms that they work with on that. In addition, you have your state orthopedic society that you can work with as well. So it's not just the Council of Advocacy at the AAOS doing that. That may be the top of the game where we're doing the biggest stuff, but so much of this stuff is local, and so much of this is impacted with the members that you know. Do you have a minute for me to tell a quick story on that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What are you going to say? No, Doug, I don't. But I know you too well. You're too polite for that. So I was at Resurgence, and my office was up in Marietta, so I was about 15, 20 miles from Dr. Bilbrew, who's over in Decatur and Snellville over there. And there was a congressman in Georgia who was blocking the PRORP bill, which was a bill that helped us pour money into research for wounded warriors and wounded veterans. Dr. Bilbrew's husband is a veteran as well. So thank Carell for his service, if you would, please. So we were trying to get this bill passed. This congressman's a good guy. We like him. He's nice. He's no longer in Congress now, but at the time he was. But the guy was a Tea Party guy, and he took an oath. He says, I'm not going to take any money. We're not going to do anything that raises any taxes. And in his mind, even though he was all about supporting the armed forces, just raise taxes. So the Academy is about to pull their hair out on this, saying, we just can't get this guy to budge on this. So I said, can you go up there? You know this guy. Can you go up there and meet him? Notice they said, you know him. So I have access. I can call him up and say, can you meet with me? And he said, yes. So I was talking to my medical assistant. I was like, what's the name of that guy that we took care of? So I'm a trauma surgeon. What's the name of that guy we took care of that on July 3rd, he was setting up a professional fireworks display and the mortar went off through his leg and blew his leg up. And then I hung him in rings, did a bunch of LSRF transport stuff that I learned from my friends who were in the Army that they were doing at Longstool to try to get the limbs to be salvaged. And so the techniques that I used on this patient were from the stuff that my friends in the armed forces had learned.
Wow.
And so they said, and believe it or not, he was in this guy's district. So we called the congressman and said, can you meet with us? He said, sure. So I drove up there, met this guy and his wife out in the parking lot. We walk into this is a good old boy from the mountains of Georgia. I mean, he's just as country and easygoing as he can be, the patient was. And we walk in, hey, Congressman, this is your constituent, my patient. And that's all I said is I said, what I learned from my friends who were serving in the Army, from the stuff that the PRRP is supporting, I was able to save your constituent's leg. Jeremy, tell the congressman your story. And I just leaned back, and he slipped his leg up on the table, pulled his pants up. The congressman's jaw drops open because, it looks like you think it would look. It's all scarred up. And he starts talking about the transport and how it saved his leg. About 5 minutes into the presentation, he leans back. He goes, excuse me, hold on. And he leans back and yells over his shoulder. And he goes, Cindy, call DC and tell him I'm on the bill. And I was like,
excellent.
That's it. That's how we do this, y'all. You got to have the relationships. You got to get involved, and we make a huge difference. And that enabled the bill to move forward, which gets money for us to help our wounded warriors get the care they need. You may sit back and say, well, Congress should just know this. They should just do the right thing. That's fine. That's not the world we live in. The world we live in, we have to get involved. We have to advocate for our patients. We have to advocate for our profession, and we are the ones that make it go.
That is a great story, and they want to hear from us. They are dying to hear stories like that, and just a great example of how it's grassroots, and that one patient moved an entire bill. So I love that. I love that. To wrap this up, we are right at 8:02, which is perfect. Let's see if we have any questions. I'm gonna stop share here. And that's been answered. Well, how do we join the Advocacy Council? Is an anonymous attendee asked.
So the Advocacy Council, so the Advocacy Council in the AAOS has a strict membership to it, and it's really members of the Board of Counselors, Board of Specialty Societies, the chairs of the Medical Liability Committee, Healthcare Assistance Committee, and Coding and Coverage and Reimbursement Committee, and the PAC. So it's certain people, and there's one member at large. So you can't really join the Advocacy Council. What you can do, though, is within the AAOS, is you can get involved in those specific committees. Dr. Bilbrew, maybe you want to talk about the advisor circle within the PAC, since Resurgence is a member of that, and how y'all, and ASSH is a member of the advisor circle.
And ASSH. So yeah, it gives you the opportunity. Again, everything is about just having a voice, right? And so I'll say from the different levels of getting involved. I think you can get involved based on your specialty, like ASSH has one. I'm not sure if OTA. You can get involved through the state advocacy. You can reach out if you reach out to myself, I can plug you in with people like Brittany Starr and others who will find members from your state, from your area, that you can contact, that again, through issues like Advocacy Week, when we say we need you to email somebody, We need you to reach out. They actually listen to you. Having that MD at your name holds weight. Having orthopedic surgeon at the end holds even greater weight because of that slide that I showed earlier, where we are second to Walmart. So, when they hear Dr. So-and-so orthopedic surgeon is coming to talk, they're like, yeah, I'm available. I'll pick up the phone. And again, everything is about relationships. Somebody else asked, for medical students and trainees, what is the best way to get involved?
Wow, that's a good question. So you can get involved. It's a little more difficult thing because you got to have access to the AAOS website, which is really fellows of the academy, and residents have access too because they're candidate. They can be not candidate members, but they get through the same way there. I'm not exactly sure about the medical students. That's a great question. Do y'all have an access through RJOS?
We don't. I think it's really for residents.
I was talking to a medical student just a few minutes ago who's a member of Ruth Jackson. She's a member, so.
Yeah, I'm starting up advocacy for RJOS, but I think it's mostly a resident. When trainees, I'm thinking that they mean residents, and we have resident members on with the ortho. So medical students, I don't think there's as much room to get involved in advocacy.
Can I talk about something real fast? Is that we have, for instance, at NOLC, we always take up 3 issues. 3 is about the number that knuckle dragging orthopedic surgeons like me can handle up on the Hill. And so I refuse to take 3 issues that are self-centric. We have to do something that's not about us. I won't do it. I will quit as COA chair before anybody makes me do that, and they won't, because everybody, the senior leadership of the AAOS totally agrees with me on that. So of the bills that we're carrying up there, one is the prior authorization bill, trying to reduce the stress and strain of prior authorization through Medicare Advantage. The second one is the big CMS cuts. We're going to get slaughtered, y'all, if we don't do something this year. You saw the conversion factor's already been cut by 4.4%. And then the PAYGO cuts come in this year as well, which is another 4%. And I've seen permutations and calculations on this that the cuts will be over 10%. We got to stop all that, but those are about us, and those are not the things that we want to do. The key issue that we're bringing up this year that really is a feel-good issue is what's called the SAVE Act, S-A-V as in Victor, E, SAVE. And what the SAVE Act does is you know that healthcare profession is being assaulted in these days by patients, families, in a very unfair and aggressive manner, right? We just saw that, Preston was shot in the line of his work doing his job. How could that be? How can stuff like that even happen to us and our colleagues in our profession? And the SAVE Act critically looks at this, and what it does is any threat, it doesn't have to be violence, just to be a threat. Somebody comes in and threatens Dr. Bilbrew. That is the same, that would then be handled the same by the federal authorities as if she had worked for TSA. So you can imagine if you walk into the airport today, if you walk into Hartsfield, make a threat against a TSA agent, you're going to be walking out in handcuffs and you're going to have a hard time at that point forward. And this raises the penalty the same amount. And it's not just about us, y'all. It's about our nurses. It's about our techs. It's about our front desk folks. It's about our medical assistants, and it protects those people, that protected class, that vulnerable class of folks that can easily be abused by patients with limited coping skills that can threaten them and really help increase to their burnout and those other things, and helps protect those folks. These are the kind of issues that we're advocating for.
And that's, I'm not sure if you saw that question that was next, which an attendee asked, when you say issues that matter to us, how are those issues determined? And is there an internal parliamentary process on policy, such as how other groups like the AMA or state societies determine these stances? So, how do we choose which issues are that we're going to, plug in Congress and advocate for?
That's a very good question. So once again, and I think y'all can rest. Let me explain this out. I think one of the things that you can rest assured on this is that we are using our resources carefully. So our Office of Government Relations has a limited bandwidth, limited amount of resources. The folks that work there are absolutely amazing. Some of the best policy and regulatory people that are out there work at our office and take care of our issues. When I go and deal with them, and I've been doing advocacy for 20 plus years, when I go to do them, I sit and I ask, I don't tell. As council chair, I walk in with these experts and I ask them things. And if you ask them, once you develop a relationship with our folks and you talk about things, you learn the practicality of our issues and what we are there. So for instance, let's use medical liability reform for a minute. You might say, hey, I just got sued. That's bogus. We got to have medical liability reform. Is medical liability reform important to orthopedic surgeons? Absolutely. Should injured patients be taken care of? Yes. But should orthopedic surgeons be abused and have felonious and bad suits thrown against them by grubby plaintiffs' attorneys? Absolutely not. We need to be protected in that. However, there is no way in the world that with the current Congress, medical liability reform is going to get passed. So even though it's a centric and important issue, we are wasting limited resources going to the mountaintop screaming for medical liability reform when in a blue Congress and a blue president, it's not happening. There are really cool things that a Democratic Congress and a Democratic presidency can pass for us. So we're going to focus more on those issues than we are on issues that you would more focus on the red side. Remember though, when the Republicans had the House and the presidency, they failed to pass medical liability reform too. So nobody's doing a great job on that issue. But my point is we have to carefully, number one, consider the practicality of what we're bringing. Number two, it's got to be something that's centric and core to what we do. As much as it's ugly, I did go to MBA school, but as much as it's ugly, payment issues are important. If I focus only on these white hat issues like the SAVE Act, like the Lorna Breen Act, for instance, the Physician Suicide Act, which was passed last year, very, very important law that we strongly supported. Those are good, wholesome issues, but if we only focus on that and allow the money issues to pass us and, no money, no mission, we're all in trouble. So we focus on issues that are centric to the academy or the association, issues that are reasonable to bring up at this point. And then the third thing is we got to have, even though it may be a reasonable Congress with a blue Congress and a blue president right now, we got to find that opportunity to bring it up. So Catherine and her folks are many times got their feelers out, watching the bills that are passed, talking to members of Congress. I talked to Catherine this morning. She had lunch with one huge member of the Senate and lunch with a huge member of Congress after that. Breakfast and lunch, I'm sorry. And then with that information, we then to figure out what are the bills that we can support that are most likely to get through here. And that's how we decide. It's not just a feel-good thing. It's not like, hey, we're all for medical liability reform, spend a massive amount of money doing that at the end of the year go, boy, we blew a whole lot of credibility, a whole lot of resources, a whole lot of cash, and got nowhere. So it's a complex way. I know it's a long-winded way of looking at it, but it's really not that making the sausage, it may not be that attractive to a lot of people. Why'd you pick those issues? Because they were the most centric ones that we knew we could make an effect on.
All right, we rely on the experts, and this is why going to things like the NOLC is so helpful, because when you see that behind the scenes, you realize it's not something where you get a bunch of orthopedic surgeons, maybe like in the other medical societies, and we vote, okay, we're going to bring up these three issues. Then we go to our experts who are on the ground, and they're like, that's not going to happen, so we do rely heavily on the experts who are at these lunches and breakfasts and dinners, and when you go to a fly-in and you get to sit in on those breakfasts and lunch and dinners, you realize like this is how advocacy happens, is by talking to them, which is the power of our PAC. Let's see if we have any other questions. I don't think we do. We ended with 2 minutes to spare, which is wonderful. So Dr. Lundy, thank you so much. Again, this is our first in our advocacy series, so that we can, start to ask some of these hard questions and open them up and get people involved, because our voices do matter. This is why we love our field so much. And I definitely appreciate the mentorship from Dr. Lundy, and I learn more about advocacy every single day. So no other questions. I think this is going to be recorded and it will be available. Feel free to pass it on, and please participate in Advocacy Week. And thank you to everyone who attended.